Hello everybody, this is Akshay over here and welcome to Akshay's biology classes. And in this session, we will be mainly discussing solutions to the KCET biology, which was conducted on 30th of July, just yesterday. So in this video, we will be looking into the solutions and that is the key answers and also with explanations. So before moving on, I would like to thank Vikas Mokashi sir because he was the one actually who shared me the question paper, and also he was the person who gave some of his insights to the question paper and also shared his views on the question paper, and most importantly he reviewed the key answers that actually I prepared. So once again, I would like to give a heartful thanks to Vikas sir. So with this being said, let's get started then. We will begin with the first question over here, that is in the below diagram. Identify the part which connects the peripheral microtubules to the central sheath. So you can see over here the diagram has been given, and they have also given the labeled parts. So you can see that the options are the plasma membrane, interdoublet bridge, central microtubule, and radial spokes. So the answer is the radial spokes. This is the one that is mainly connects to the central sheath. The next question we are having over here is the element whose percentage weight is highest in both Earth's crust and the human body. The options are the hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and the calcium. This question, the answer is going to be the oxygen. Oxygen is the one that is the highest concentration, uh, highest percentage according to the question, which is present in the earth crust and also the human body. So moving on, the third question we are having here is the identify the event in the meiosis that is mainly mediated by the enzyme uh, recombinase. So recombinase enzyme is mainly required for the recombination process. The options are the synaptic pairing, that is synapses, and next is the terminalization process. Next one is the crossing over, and finally the D option is the interkinesis. So the right option over here is the C, that is the crossing over. Moving on, the fourth question over here, that is the deficiency of which of the following elements uh, interrupts the photolysis of water during the photosynthesis. Option A, that is manganese and chlorine. The B option is zinc and copper. The third is calcium and potassium, and the D is nitrogen and phosphorus. So already it has been marked, that is the manganese and the calcium. A is the right answer for this question. So moving on, in the case of C4 plants, the C3 cycle takes place in option A, that is the mesophyll cells. The B is the bulliform cells. C is the companion cells, and D is the bundle sheath cells. So it is basically the bundle sheath cells in which the C3 cycle takes place, and the product that is formed in the bundle sheath cells is transported to the mesophyll cells, where the actual fixation of the carbon dioxide takes place. So moving on, the next question we are having. During the citric acid cycle, the various organic acid undergo decarboxylation. Which of the following organic acids of the above cycle have 4 carbon, 5 carbon, and 6 carbon respectively? So the first one is the oxaloacetic acid, citric acid, and succinic acid. Next one we are having is the succinic acid, alpha ketogluteric acid, and citric acid. Pyruvic acid, malic acid, and alpha ketogluteric acid. The D option is the pyruvic acid, alpha ketogluteric acid, and citric acid. The answer is simple, that is the B, succinic acid, which is a 4 carbon compound. Alpha ketogluteric acid is again a 5 carbon compound, and citric acid is again a 6 carbon compound. Moving on, consider the following statements regarding photosynthesis and respiration in the case of plants and select the correct option. So the first statement is Rubisco has high affinity to oxygen in low CO2 concentration. So second statement is the Kelvin pathway occurs in the chloroplast of bundle sheath cells of C4 plants. The third option is yeast poison themselves when the concentration of alcohol reaches 7%. And the fourth option is oxygen is the final hydrogen acceptor during the aerobic respiration. So the first statement is actually correct, that is Rubisco is actually having high affinity for oxygen in the when the CO2 concentration is low. And the second statement, that is the Calvin pathway, actually occurs in the bundle sheath cells of the C4 plants. It is a true statement. Third statement is about the poisoning of yeast when the concentration of alcohol reaches 7%, which is actually a wrong statement. Okay, it is actually 13% when the concentration concentration reaches above 13% or above, yeast poison themselves. So the third statement is actually the wrong one. And the fourth statement is oxygen is the final acceptor of proton, that is the hydrogen. It is a true statement. So based upon this, according to the combinations given over here, you can see that the statement 1 and 4 are correct, the third is wrong. This is the correct option. The statement 1 and 4 are correct, but the third statement is wrong. Moving on, the eighth question over here. Match the following digestive glands given in the column 1 with their respective enzymes in the column 2 and choose the correct combination from the given options. The column 1 we are having is the pancreas, second one is the gastric glands, third one is the small intestine, fourth one we are having is the salivary glands. So column 2 we are having is the pepsin, next one is the enterokinase, tailin, and finally the trypsin. So based upon this, you have to match the column with the column 1 with the column 2, and you can see over here that the first one, that is the pancreas is actually having the trypsin, and the gastric glands, it is mainly having the uh, pepsin, and next one we are having is the small intestine, which is the source of enterokinase, and finally the salivary glands, which is having the tailin, right? When you look into the right options, you can see that out of all these, the option B is the right answer for this, which matches to the one that actually we have already written over here. That is, the first one matches with the S, and second one with the P, third one with the Q, and finally fourth one with the R from the column 1 and column 2. Now moving on, ninth question, match the following different types of leukocytes given in the column 1 with their percentage of occurrence in the column 2 in a healthy adult human and choose the correct answer. Column 1 we are having is the neutrophils, second one is the lymphocytes, monocytes, basophils, and finally eosinophils. Column 2 is 6 to 8%, 60 to 65%, 0.5 to 1%, and next one is the 2 to 3%, and last one we are having is the 20 to 25%. So if you know, the neutrophils are the one that actually occur at the highest concentration. So basically 60 to 65 is the neutrophils. Answer is 1 over here. And next one we are having is the lymphocytes, which actually are of 20 to 25%. That is over here. And the monocytes is around 6 to 8%, this one. And finally, next one we are having is the basophils, which are the least out of all, that is 0.5 to 1%. Finally, the eosinophils, which occur at 2 to 3%. So based upon all these, when you look into all these options, D is the right answer for this. It matches to all these what we have written over here. Now moving on. So the next 10th question is, in which part of the human brain corpora quadrigemina is located? Option A is forebrain, B is the hindbrain, C is midbrain, and D is the cerebral hemisphere. So corpora quadrigemina actually comes in the midbrain. So C is the right answer for this. Now let us move to the next question. That is, a girl after attaining sexual maturity shows development of ovarian follicles, development of mammary glands, and high pitch of voice. These changes are attributed to dash hormones. The first one is the melatonin, B is the estrogens, C is the progesterone, D is the androgen. So the female sex hormone that is mainly responsible for development of mammary gland or ovarian follicles is because of estrogens. Hence the answer is B, estrogen. So melatonin is mainly coming from the pineal gland, and it is mainly responsible for the maintenance of circadian rhythm, and progesterone is mainly associated with maintenance of pregnancy, and androgens are basically a male sex hormone. So B is the right option over here. Now, moving on, in apple, the chromosome number of gametes is 17. What is the chromosome number in its primary endosperm nucleus? So we have to remember one thing, that primary endosperm nucleus is triploid, right? So the options what they have given is 34, 38, 17, and 51. So thrice of 17 is 51. The answer is 51 over here. D is the right answer for this. So now here is a diagrammatic question that has been appeared over here. Identify the vegetative propagule, that is yum, which has been labeled over here in the following diagram. So this diagram they have given, and you have to answer what is this yum. So A is bulbil, B is offset, C is rhizome, and D is runner. The answer is B, that is the offset. Moving on, during excavation of soil, pollen fossils were retrieved from the deepest layer of soil. The pollen grains remained as fossils because the Option A is the intine of pollen grains is made up of pectin. Exine has a spiny ornamentation. The exine of pollen grain is highly resistant to enzymatic action. The pollen grains are asexual reproductive structures. So if you remember, the pollen grain is basically having two layers. That is, outermost is actually the exine and inner is the intine. And as we know that exine is very tough material, sporopollenin, and exine is very much resistant to enzymatic action. So based upon this, C is the right answer for this question. Moving on, identify the mismatch over here. Again, there has been a mark on the question. So they have given antipodals, haploid, zygote, diploid. C is synergid, that is matched with the diploid, and primary endosperm nucleus, that is triploid. So you have to identify the mismatch one. Antipodals, they are haploid, actually it is true. Zygote is diploid, it is true. And synergid is diploid, no, it is actually haploid. So the right answer is C. And primary endosperm nucleus is, yeah, triploid, it is true. So the right option over here we are having is the synergid, which should be haploid, but the mismatch is with the diploid. Hence the C is the right option for this question. Identify the correct order of events in the pollen pistil interaction from the options given below. Release of male gametes into the embryo sac, first event. Second event is deposition of pollen grains on the stigma. Third event is pollen entry of pollen tube into the embryo sac. Fourth event is development of pollen tube, and entry of pollen tube into the ovule. That is the fifth event. So you can see that based upon all these four events which has been jumbled, it should be arranged in a proper way. So the first is actually the position of the pollen grains on the stigma, and the next is the development of pollen tube, and the third event is actually the entry of pollen tube into the ovule, and next one we are having is the entry of pollen tube into the embryo sac, which is the right one. Finally, release of gametes into the embryo sac. So based upon this, the order of events are actually 2, 4, 5, 3, 1. So 2, 4, 5, 3, 1. So B is the right answer for this particular question. Moving on, match the months listed in the column 1 with the organogenesis of fetus in the column 2. So the column 1 mainly tells the first month, second month, fifth month, and the sixth month. The column 2 mainly tells us the suppression of eyelids. Next event is the hairs on head. Next is heart development or heart. Last one we are having is the limbs and digits. You can see that the first month is mainly associated with the development of heart and functioning of heart. So this is the right option for this. Second month is mainly associated with the development of limbs and digits. So this is the right option for this. And the fifth month is mainly associated with the development of hairs on the head. The sixth month is mainly associated with the separation of the eyelids. So based upon this, D option matches with the column 1 and column 2 orderly according to which we have written over here. The 18 questions we are having, when the fallopian tube is blocked at the ampullary region, the ovum fails to move from isthmus to infundibulum, ovary to ampulla, isthmus to uterus, infundibulum to isthmus. We know that a fallopian tube is mainly divisible into four regions, that is fimbriae, infundibulum, ampulla, and the isthmus. So between the isthmus and the infundibulum is the ampulla. So if you block the ampullary region, obviously the ova will not be able to move from infundibulum to the isthmus. So the right option over here is the D, that is infundibulum to the isthmus is the right answer for here. Now moving on, identify the cells presented as P, Q, R and S in the schematic representation of oogenesis shown below and choose the correct option. So they have given over here the P, Q, R and S. They have even labeled the first polar body, second polar body. The first polar body is coming from the primary oocyte. Obviously the P should be primary oocyte. And you can see that the second polar body is coming from the secondary oocyte. Obviously this should be secondary oocyte, right? And yes, here is coming from the R, that is the secondary oocyte, which means that it should be ovum or the egg. P is the oogonia. So based upon this, you can see that according to the order of arrangement, the answer from all the options, if you look into, D is the right one. All right, let us move on to the next set of questions. Which of the following contraceptive could be effective in avoiding the pregnancy if used in 72 hours after casual, unprotected intercourse. So the option A is androgen FSH combination, B is testosterone relaxin combination, C is relaxin is oxytocin combination, and D is progesterone estrogen combination. Answer is very easy. It is the progesterone estrogen combinations which are used as contraceptives. All other options are actually wrong. All right, let us go on to the next question. Choose the correct statement regarding the GIFT, that is gamete intrafallopian tube transfer procedure. So the A option is ova is collected from the female donor and are transferred to the fallopian tube to facilitate the zygote formation in the recipient. Yes, that is the right answer. Okay, so the first option itself tells us the right answer. It is an assisted reproductive technique that has been developed where the gametes are actually collected and are transferred into the fallopian tube. So the first option itself is correct. So I don't have to read the remaining options over here. The next question we are having here is, which of the following characters was not studied by Mendel in his pea plant experiments? Stem height, pod shape, seed shape, and leaf shape. No, no, no. Leaf shape was not studied by the Mendel, hence D is the right answer. So if you remember from the 7 characters that actually Mendel chose for his study was stem height, pod shape, pod color, seed shape, and seed color, flower color, and flower positions in the pea plant. These were 7 characters actually Mendel chose for his hybridization experiments. So in an organism, a mutation in a single gene exhibits multiple phenotypic expressions. Identify underlying the genetic mechanism in the above instance. So option A is pleotropy. Yes, answer A is pleotropy. Incomplete dominance is completely different, where no character is dominant. Now, polygenic inheritance is completely a different topic over here. It is mainly associated with characters with many gene control the inheritance of that particular trait. The last one we are having over here is the multiple allelism. Blood group is an example for multiple allelism, and it is not associated with this mutation what they have given in the question. So pleotropy is the right answer for this. So pleotropy is the right answer for this. Moving on, we are having the next question. A pure breeding plant, pea plant with the round yellow seeds was crossed with the pea plant having wrinkled and green seeds. So they have given two characters, round yellow and wrinkled green, which means that it is a dihybrid cross. So on selfing the F1 hybrid of his cross, 64 progenies were obtained in the F2 generations. So find out the number of F2 progenies which were having the non-parental characters. So if you remember the phenotypic ratio of the dihybrid cross, it is 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. So basically these are the non-parental characters. So how can we calculate? It is basically 6 by 16, right? So if you consider all this, it is 16. The Punnett square will be having 16 blocks. 6 by 16 of 64, you get an answer of 24, right? So D is the right answer for this. Okay, a simple mathematical question that has been asked this time in the CET. A man with blood group A marries a woman with the blood group B. The maximum possible blood groups among the progenies are AB only, A comma B, AB, A comma B, A comma B comma AB, and O, right? So they have said maximum possible blood groups. This can only come when the man is a heterozygous A blood group and the woman is a heterozygous B blood group. Basically, I'm speaking of the alleles being in this way, and for B blood group, it should be in this. So if the genotype are in this combination, that is capital IA and small I, for B blood group capital IB and small I, then you can get the maximum blood group combination, that is A, B, AB, and O. So hence D is the right option for this particular question. Now moving on, the length of the DNA helix in a typical nucleosome, right? So in a typical nucleosome, what is the length of the DNA helix that actually wraps the nucleosome, right? So this is the question, what actually it means. So they have given 4 options, that is 200 base pairs, 1000 base pairs, 3.2 to 10 raised to 6, and 6.6 into 10 raised to 9 base pairs. So it is 200 base pairs. Now moving on, 27 question. Which of the following types of RNA carries the amino acids towards the ribosome during the translation process? So A is the rRNA, B is dsRNA, C is the tRNA, and D is mRNA. tRNA is mainly associated with carrying the right amino acids to the ribosome during the translation. So option C is the right answer for this. Now moving on, next question we are having in eukaryotes, the entire base sequence of a gene do not appear in mature RNA because the reasons they have given in 4 options, that is transcription in eukaryotes consumes more energy, coding sequences are removed during processing, C is introns are removed during processing. D option is some gene sequences are removed by exonuclease. So you know that hnRNA, that is heterogeneous RNA, is having 2 sequences. The first is called as the introns, another is called as the exon. So exon is basically the coding sequences what they have given over here. But introns are the interruptive sequences which are actually removed, right? As a result, not all part of the DNA that has been copied into the RNA will appear in the mRNA, because mRNA is basically the processed form of hnRNA where introns are actually removed during the processing. So hence C is the right option for this question. Right. Let us go on to the next set. Suppose DNA samples are collected from the DNA fingerprinting analysis are less than the required quantity. Which of the following techniques is helpful to make the samples sufficient for the above analysis? The A is electrophoresis, B is chromatography, C is PCR, D is DNA probing. So electrophoresis is basically suppression technique, chromatography is basically purification technique, and PCR is actually the technique that is used to create more amount of DNA. And DNA probing is basically hybridization technique, which is not concerned over here. PCR is the right answer for this particular question. Moving on, when Escherichia coli cells are cultured in a medium where lactose is absent, the I gene, that is the inhibitor gene of the lac operon, continues to produce the repressor mRNA because it is option A is a non-coding gene, option B is operator gene, option C is constitutive gene, and option D is structural gene. So if we have studied the lac operon, if you have studied the lac operon properly, uh, it's it is clearly mentioned in the textbook that the I gene of the lac operon will be constitutively expressed in the absence of lactose, right? So the answer for this particular question is C, that is, it is a constitutive gene. All right. Let's go on to the next question. That is, for the given sequence of the DNA, identify the complementary sequences of bases in its mRNA from the options given below. So the DNA what they have given is from 3' end, begins with the ATG, CATG, CATGC, and ends with the 5', right? So they have asked about the mRNA. So remember one thing, that wherever there is A, there will be U, and wherever there is T, there will be A, and wherever there is G, it will be with the C, and C with the G, right? So the sequence will be, I will write it over here, A, again U, A, C, G, U, A, C, G, A. In the mRNA it will be U, again A, C, G, right? But we should also consider the directionality of the mRNA. So we know that the mRNA synthesis begins from 5' to 3'. So obviously this side it will be 5' and this end will be 3'. So the option for this is, you can see over here, is A, right? So moving on with the next question, which among the following was the biggest land dinosaur? Stegosaurus, Tyrannosaurus rex, Brachiosaurus, and Triceratops. So the answer is Tyrannosaurus rex was the largest or the biggest land dinosaur. Moving on, in a population of plants, some were extremely tall and the remaining were extremely dwarf. No plants of the population showed intermediate height. So there was no plant with intermediate height, right? So the type of operation of natural selection in the above case is balancing, directional, stabilizing, disruptive. In this case, there were two extremes, that is extremely tall and extremely dwarf. So this case fits with the disruptive selection. So the answer for this is D, that is the disruptive selection. Moving on, injection of antidote against snake bite is an example of innate immunity, active immunity, passive immunity, autoimmunity. So basically we are transferring the ready-made antibodies in the case of snake bite, so which is a classical example of passive immunity. It is the right answer over here. Innate is something that we are born with, and active immunity is basically a type of immunity that is gained or developed throughout an individual's lifetime. And autoimmunity is basically a type of disorder where the individual's own immunity will act on their own tissues. Now, moving on, next question we are having, that certain tumors are called as malignant because they are confined to specific location. They invade and damage surrounding tissues. They show contact inhibition. They are not neoplastic. So certain tumors are called malignant. The tumors that are actually malignant, they show metastasis and they do not have contact inhibition, right? So from this, B is the right answer. That is, they invade and damage the surrounding tissues. The invasion by the malignant tumor cells is called as the metastasis. Now, moving on, the transport of which neurotransmitter is interfered by the cocaine. So A option is acetylcholine, B is serotonin, D is GABA, that is gamma amino butyric acid, the D is dopamine. So the right option here is the dopamine. The reuptake of dopamine is actually interfered by the cocaine, right? Moving on, in the life cycle of Plasmodium, the fertilization takes place in salivary glands of mosquito, RBCs of humans, stomach of the mosquito, liver cells. So you can see over here that in the case of salivary glands of the mosquito, it mainly contains the infective stage, that is the sporozoite. The RBC of the human beings are mainly the part of the asexual reproductive cycle of the plasmodium, and it is the stomach of the mosquito where actually the fertilization takes place. So the sexual cycle actually occurs in the stomach of the mosquito, or basically the mosquito itself. So the right option over here is the stomach of the mosquito. And the liver cells, again, it is a part of the asexual cycle of the plasmodium. Moving on, the white rust resistant variety of brassica is Pusa Sadabahar, Pusa Swarnim, Pusa Shubhara, Pusa Komal. So it's the Pusa Swarnim. It is basically the white rust resistant variety of the brassica. So 39th question we are having, which of the following plant tissues cannot be used as explant in the tissue culture? So the options are meristem, B is parenchyma, C is sclerenchyma, D is collenchyma. The answer is sclerenchyma, because sclerenchyma is basically a dead tissue. The hybridization between the naturally incompatible plants like potato and tomato can be achieved through A is artificial pollination, B is somatic hybridization, C is conventional breeding, D is mutation breeding. So you can make them compatible by somatic hybridization process. The next question, a chili plant was severely infected with the chili mosaic virus, CMV. Identify the technique that helps to raise the virus-free plants in the next generation from the above virus-infected plant. Option A is artificial hybridization, B is meristem culture, and C is self-pollination, D is hydroponics. The answer for this is the meristem culture. Using the meristematic tissue, you can use this tissue for developing new generation of plants, that is the next generation of plants, which are going to be virus-free. Moving on, in a sewage treatment, secondary treatment is considered highly significant because it helps to remove the debris from the sewage. It reduces the BOD level of the sewage. C option is it helps in production of biogas, and D option is it increases the organic content of the sewage. Basically, secondary treatment is important because it mainly helps in the formation of flocks, and the flocks which are actually formed in the second treatment will mainly reduce the organic content. It will not increase the organic content, and reduction of the organic content will actually reduce the BOD of the sewage. So the right option for this question is the B, that is it reduces the BOD of the sewage. Now moving on, the ruminant animals can digest cellulose in their food, whereas human beings are unable to do so. This is because methanogens are present in the human gut. The cellulose is a complex sugar. Cellulose reduces the bulk of food methanogens are absent in human gut. So we cannot utilize cellulose basically because we lack the enzyme called as cellulase. And cellulase is actually an enzyme that comes from the methanogens. So human gut is lacking, or methanogens are not present in the human gut. So the right option over here is the D, that is methanogens are absent in the human gut. Now moving on, from the given combination of steps in the PCR, that is the polymerase chain reaction, identify the enzyme dependent step or steps. So the A is annealing and extension, B is annealing and denaturation, C is denaturation and extension, D is extension only, right? Annealing and denaturation is basically independent of enzyme process. These steps do not require enzymes actually. It is only the extension, that is the synthesis step, requires the enzyme, that is the Taq polymerase, and hence the right option for this is extension only. Now, the next one is biolistics method is suitable for gene transfer into viruses, animal cells, bacteria, plant cells. In reality, biolistics is used for transferring of genes in animal cells, bacteria also. But however, the more appropriate answer for this is the plant cell, because biolistics is routinely used and more employed in the case of plant cells. Now, here, identify the labels M and N in the following agarose gel electrophoresis representation. So here you can see there are wells where the DNA is actually loaded, and M and N. So the options are as following. In the case of option A, M means digested DNA bands, N is undigested DNA bands. In the case of option B, M is hybridized DNA bands, N is unhybridized DNA bands. In the case of C, M is largest DNA bands, N is the smallest DNA bands. And in the case of D option, M is smallest DNA bands and N is largest DNA bands. So we should remember that agarose gel electrophoresis is a technique that is mainly used for separation of the DNA. So the DNA molecules will be separated based upon their length. Shorter the length, more farther they will move. More the length, less distance will be covered by such DNA molecules. So obviously the M here, which means that they are larger DNA bands, larger DNA molecules, and M are the smallest or smaller DNA molecules. So based upon this, the C option is the right answer for this. That is, M means largest DNA bands, N means smallest DNA bands. Right, let's go on to the next question. In the RNA interface, basically they are telling about RNA interference. The double-stranded RNA molecule prevents option A, transcription of mRNA. Option B, transport of mRNA from the nucleus to cytoplasm. C is translation of mRNA. D, amino acylation. So RNA interference is where we use the double-stranded RNA molecule to prevent the translation of the mRNA. So the right option here is the translation of the mRNA. So the next question is, nowadays the early diagnosis of bacterial or viral infection in the humans is possible using option A, serum analyzer, B is DNA sequencer, C is PCR, D is CT scan. The answer for this question is PCR only. That is polymerase chain reaction, which can be used for bacterial or viral infection. So even in the case of coronavirus diagnosis, we use a special kind of PCR called as the RT-PCR. Um, RT, RT-PCR. So this RT-PCR is called as the reverse transcriptase PCR. It's a special modified version of the regular PCR that we see. Right? Due to time constraint, we cannot discuss this RT-PCR. But anyway, for this question, the right option is the PCR. Now, moving on, which of the following features of the plants is not helpful for adapting to desert life? Option A is presence of thick cuticle on the leaf surface, leaves modified into spines, presence of sunken stomata, absence of trichomes on leaf surface. Obviously, absence of trichomes on the leaf surface is not helpful. So D is the right answer for this. So presence of thick cuticle, it is required. Leaves modified into spines, that is in the case of opuntia, what we observe, it is required for adaptation. And presence of sunken stomata, it is also required. D is the right answer. Next question we are having, in the following words per logistic growth, the letter R denotes dash, and the equation is dn by dt is equal to Rn Kn minus K. right? So they have mainly asked about the R. So option A is extrinsic rate of natural increase, B is intrinsic rate of natural increase, C is carrying capacity, D is population density. So R is actually intrinsic rate of natural increase. B is the right option for this question. So moving on, the shape of the pyramids reflect the growth status of the population. Identify the type of age pyramid represented for the human population. So if you look into this pyramid, which actually has been taken from organisms and population chapter from the second year, and if you remember properly, this pyramid is actually uh, a declining pyramid. D is the right answer for this. So this graph is actually representing the declining type of human population. Moving on, identify the possible link yum in the following food chain: plant, insect, yum, which we should identify, and snake and eagle. So options are A is rabbit, B is wolf, C is frog, D is ichthyophis. It's very easy question. It is the frog as the right answer. The next question we are having: the organisms which invade a bare area to initiate ecological succession are known as A. Keystone species, B. Climatic species, C. Endemic species, D. Pioneer species. So the first species that actually acquire or take over an area and begin the actual succession, they are called as the pioneer species. So D is the right answer for this. Moving on, which of the following is not included in situ conservation mode? A is national park, B is sanctuary, C is botanical garden, and D is biosphere reserve. It's an easy question. Botanical garden is not in the in situ conservation. Next question we are having: which of the following is wrong statement? Most of the forests have been lost in the tropical areas. The greenhouse effect is a natural phenomenon. Eutrophication is a natural phenomenon in freshwater lakes. Ozone in the upper part of the atmosphere is harmful to animals. D is the wrong statement, because ozone is actually required in the upper part of the atmosphere, because they basically absorb the UV rays and protect the organisms from the harsh results of the UV rays. So moving on, according to the Supreme Court of India ruling with respect to Bharat Stage 6 norms, from which date these are supposed to be implemented in the country? A is 1st April 2020, B is 1st June 2021, C is 1st January 2021, D is 10th December 2020. The answer for this question is A, 1st April 2020. So it's a very much general knowledge question, but however, it is associated with the Bharat stage, which has been mentioned in the textbook. Now, moving on, match the following classes of fungi, column 1, with the examples of the column 2. The column 1, they have given Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes. Fourth one is the Deuteromycetes. In the column 2, it is Penicillium. Next is Alternaria, Albugo, and next is Puccinia. Phycomycetes is actually matching with the Albugo, that is 1. And you can see that next one is the Ascomycetes, which matches with the Penicillium. Basidiomycetes is the Puccinia, right? We trust what we call, that is third one, and Deuteromycetes, Alternaria. So based upon this, what matches we have done over here, D is the right option that you can see over here. So D is the right answer for this. Now moving on, observe the following simplified scheme and choose the correct option that matches with the letters given in the boxes. So they have given vertebrata, which is splitting into two, that is P and Q. P means lax jaw, Q means bear's jaw. Again, this Q is split into two parts, that is R and S. Bears fins, S means bear limbs, means they have limbs. So you can see that lacking jaw means it is agnathostomata or agnatha. Having the jaw means it is gnathostomata or gnathostomes. And having fins means they are basically pisces or fishes, and bearing limbs means tetrapoda. So you can see the first option itself that it matches to that particular description and also the respective alphabets. So A is the right answer for this particular question, right? I don't have to read the other options also. So moving on, identify the floral unit I in the given floral diagram. So they have given a floral unit. If I remember properly, it is actually the uh, Allium cepa, which belongs to Liliaceae family. They have given the floral diagram of the Liliaceae, that is Allium cepa, onion. The I, what they have mentioned over here, they have asked here. A is sepal, B is petal, C is tepal, and D is perianth. So they have asked the floral unit, the outermost, that is the I, and the right option for this is the perianth. I have also seen that some of the key answers made by others, they say it is tepal. You cannot disagree with that point, but however, we can consider even tepal as also the answer, apart from perianth. So I would like to say that there will be some conflict regarding whether it's going to be perianth or tepal. So I would like to even also add tepal as the right answer also. So here tepal is also the right answer, apart from perianth. Now moving on, last question that we are having. A student observes grass and hibiscus plant in his garden during noon. To his surprise, only the leaves of grass were found to roll backwards. The reason could be presence of more number of stomata on the grass leaves, undifferentiated mesophyll in the grass leaves, presence of bulliform cells in the grass leaves. D is due to high rate of transpiration. So the right option for this particular question is the presence of bulliform cells in the grass leaves, which are characteristic cells which are mainly found in the case of monocots, and they are mainly involved in folding and unfolding of the leaf tissue because it mainly controls the light intensity and overall reduction in the water loss. So the right answer for this question is the presence of bulliform cells in the grass leaves. So we have discussed all 60 questions with the best explanation possible. This is what actually I feel. So the number of questions that actually appeared from the PU1 based upon my observation is around 15 questions, and the number of questions that have appeared from the PUC2 was 45. So according to me, the level of difficulty was easy to moderate. I would like to call more easy itself than to call it as moderate, but yeah, it was like easy to moderate. But if you are prepared from NCRT completely, that is government PU textbooks, you can hit all these 60 questions correctly. So my view about this particular question paper is that it is very much good and balanced questions with bit of twist here and there, not completely, but here and there. Yeah, so this was about the session on the discussion of the questions. If you are having any kind of opinion about this particular video or the question, you can give it in the comment section. So that's it. Thank you.